Now this is a match that I am excited to see. It's the type that always gets me excited, out of bed, and ready to play some Beyond a Reason. Welcome back, friends, to the Brightworks. Today we've got a submission from a viewer like you who sent in a match saying that they had improved a little bit. It was, of course, Angry Strawberry spawning in the northeastern side. Going to be playing as one of the blue team players, although led today by Panini Pie. Going to be the blue team leader here, representing the blue as Armada, going into a bot lab perspectively after going into quite a few of these wind turbines. I'm really excited to see this. Angry Strawberry, maybe she felt that I didn't necessarily represent her current skill level and has improved, and so I'm always excited to see what you guys have cooked up in the labs and have got for me today. Going to be going for a bot lab on the backline here. Wonder if we're going to go for tech, or I wonder if we're going to go for air. This is a 4 versus 4, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see an air lab eventually for those Cortex Shuriken support drones, as well as maybe a little bit of bombing action. Always fun. Spawning all the way on the other side of the map here, the southwestern side. That's right, double checking my sides nowadays. Apparently I don't know my left from right. Magic. Or maybe it's Magic. Could be either one. I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3, and the Githyanki call people Gix all the time, or Geeks? I don't know. Anyways, Magic. The red team leader here spawning his Cortex with a vehicle bay going up on the front line. Wind speed is pretty low right now. A lot of these commanders were hoping for a high wind speed when they got low. That's just how it goes sometimes. Doubling down on wind, oftentimes a risky gambit, but I think it's probably what I would choose to do, even if maybe not exactly the most empirically correct choice to go for here. Certainly a solar panel or two is going to allow you a little bit more consistent energy, but far be it from me to ever say that you should build a T1 solar panel lest you are playing on a solar-only map. I guess we have time here in the early game. There are a couple of rovers headed across the map, and I'm curious if these are going to get any damage here. Already, RB Squidums Uwu, our yellow player on the red team here, who has got a mine layer out. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, mine layers certainly can do a little bit of damage here. You have the potential to make these mines that can shut down a lot of early game aggression, and then later on you can use them to build the Dragon's Teeth, which kind of help in that early game. I think they definitely have their place here in this matchup, especially on a map as flat as this. Acidus Crack, by the way, in case you aren't familiar, in case you didn't watch the live-streamed 1v1 tournament, this map was prominently featured on that tournament. It was one of the most popular ones by far. Just because of how wide open it is, it's very, very viable to go vehicles on this map, but also it's wind maps, so you have plenty of energy, you have plenty of metal, you have plenty of space, and you have plenty of action. Grunt in a little bit of trouble here. The Rascals do manage to burst it down. There are more Grunts coming out here, and eventually the Grunts do trade positively against the Rascals. Single rover does get into the backline here. At the very least, effectively scouting the backline of the blue team. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call that tremendous damage, game-winning damage. No, I would probably hesitate to say it's damage at all. But certainly it's valuable information, right? Knowing where all these players is, knowing that your tentative most powerful player, your blue team leader, is up north, means that northern side should be braced for a heavy fight. Knowing that your other players are on different angles means that those angles should be more aggressive. It is a lot of information that gets flooded back to your team, but it's definitely well worth going for. At this point, Angry Strawberry has made a whole bunch of grunts and is pumping them out onto the field here, moving the commander down south to actually capture some of these metal extractors. It's a bit of an odd move, not necessarily the standard, but I really don't mind it. Yeah, going for a laser tower in the back here to defend. It's risky. I mean, well, not risky, but it's just difficult to build a laser tower in the proper spot because once you go for wind turbines, it can't really shoot past them and between them. So one of the problems you run into is this isn't fully covering the base. Ticks can certainly run around this backhand side, right, like this, and come in from this angle and still get some damage done. So really, Angry Strawberry is, mostly she's going to be relying on Panini Pie here to set up a defensive line that's capable of withholding so that they don't get run by. Not a unfair assumption, given that they're playing as the backline player. But not really. They're not playing like a backline player. She's actually deciding to push forward with these mexes, which was the whole point of this sentence, and I think I like it quite a bit. Magic has established his front line with Azaon. Azaon, a prominent member of the Brightworks, a friend, I would say. One of the folks who always shows up to the streams, which are now on Tuesday and Saturday. I'm taking every opportunity I can to remind everyone about that. We just concluded our first Tuesday stream as of recording this, and it went wonderfully, so I was glad that everyone had a blast. feel free to come out on Tuesdays and Saturdays, 12 PDT, if you can make it. I know that's a little bit late for some of the European folks, and maybe a slightly inconvenient time for some others, but yeah, should be. I mean, a good 5 or 6 hours of hanging out, playing some bar, having a good time. Definitely a treat. Capturing metal extractors is the main point of expansion on this map. You have to make sure that you're constantly getting these metal extractors down. And for that reason, I really wonder why we don't have this metal extractor, and this metal extractor. Lord Satan, the undoer of all that is good, has pushed forward here. Oh, pardon me, that was mine. Don't worry, you don't have to check yours. Let me disable that right now. Yep, sorry. Professional commentator. There we go. I always turn that on so I can see the names of whoever submitted the replays, and then I forget to turn it off, and you guys get baited into checking your Discord. So I do apologize for everybody that I'm sure just glanced over at their second monitor. Anyways, what was I talking about? These metal extractors. I think getting these up and running as soon as possible is absolutely critical. So I'm very thrilled to see that there is a constructor vehicle on top of it. A little bit of a run by up north here. We do have a couple of blitzes from RB Squidum's Uwu who are moving forward. They're going to run right into the commander of Panini Pie. So it really comes down to, do we micro properly against this commander? I think these were queued and are no longer being controlled. Beautiful D-guns right there. Panini Pie D-gunning down all but one of them, who will at last be blasted apart by the light laser cannon mounted atop the commander's left forearm, as well as the pawn infantry support. Very nicely done. Easily shuts down all of that, and it's not an insignificant amount of metal that was lost in that either. Where'd the mine layer go? Do we still have the mine layer out here? I don't see it. I wonder if the mine layer was caught at some point. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe it got a little overzealous, and yeah, there it is. Groundhog wreckage, yep. So the mine layer did go down. Now this is a nice little counterattack. Ooh, some aggression right through the middle of the map here on the right-hand side. Angry Strawberry setting up her line, going to be setting up the aggravators here, besieging any of this position. Those light laser tanks, they're very powerful now, but you have to be careful. I mean, this is just free damage essentially for Angry Strawberry, so it is forcing a decision here from Neilaro. He either has to push in here, or he either has to back off, and I think too much damage was done there. It wasn't a lot, but it was still too much damage that was done there, and eventually the light laser tanks pushed in and just essentially got annihilated. Resbots here, very nicely done as well. Great to include those so that you can resurrect all this juicy corpse piles. I need a drink. Hold on, 1 second. Sip of the old agua fresca. Anyways, resurrecting those corpse piles, of course, to get the units back out on the field. Reinforcing from the front lines much quicker than reinforcing from all the way in the back, especially as the backline player here. Expanding the economy with two Walker constructors, 2 bot lab constructors. I approve of that. This is my favorite way to expand windmill economy as well. Just go for a couple of these wind turbines in rows of 2. Get those rows of 2 out, and eventually they're very bomb resistant. It's difficult to bomb those, and they are also very, very good at well, usually keeping themselves out of the way, the constructors, that is. Basically what you can do right now is once they're building, you just queue them off to the side, hold spacebar and right click to queue them off to the side. It'll put them in a position where they'll start building without getting in each other's way and in the way of the building. It'll make all the world of a difference. Panini Pie with a dominating lead up north here. None of these metal extractors have been captured as RB Squidums has been forced to take the fight right here. This is actually really, really interesting. So what we're seeing here is essentially there was a backline player for the red team, and they went into air power, now transitioning into a vehicle bay, but way, way later, versus 4 players going front here for the blue team, meaning that essentially Panini Pie has this northern lane that has to contend with run-bys on occasion, but all too often there's basically nothing over here, and so that means that the blue player has essentially free reign to gather all these metal extractors, continue pumping out economy, continue getting construction bots all over the map, and continuing to oppress whoever should be on that side. RB Squidums would normally be fighting up that lane, but of course, fighting against 2 fronts here, very, very difficult. Only the best can do it. Zayon moving forward with some cherry D-guns, by the way. Nice D-guns here for Magic as well, though. He does get one of the tanks. Is he going to get a second one? It's kited pretty well here as Zayon microing his heart out, trying to get the absolute most value out of that tank. I don't mind it, not one bit. Zayon is going to pull back off the front line, though, and I think that's probably the right idea. He doesn't really have a standing army, so he can't stand any aggression, but luckily, Magic doesn't really have one either. There's a couple of siege units, these Wolverines. They're quite nice, but not the name of the game here. Nice push with the commander, using the commander as the frontline HP soaker, essentially. Very, very nice, and of course, if those tanks get a little too close, you can always degun them down. Very efficient way to remove metal from your enemy's bank. Only more efficient if you manage to reclaim it as well, and I think, yep, nice degun there. Killing a couple of these here and there, eventually going to be a positive trade. And the resbots, oh, these are so wonderful. The resbots picking up all these tanks, it has got to be the bane of Neil Rowe's existence to see all of his own units eventually coming back to kill him. Yeah, that is a huge pain. Now the grunts flashing down whatever they can in conjunction with, ooh, that was a nice little hit though, in conjunction with the incisors, those light laser tanks. Rocket bots are going to be the weapon of choice against these medium tanks. They do a decent job, yeah, especially the aggravators. They do a fairly decent job against the tanks. The tanks don't move quite fast enough for the rocketeer, or for the to outmaneuver the rockets fired from the aggravators there. So I think this, all said and done, is a pretty good option. These resbots make all the difference right here. Yeah. This is how you play bots versus vehicles. This is a prime example of exactly how you play bots versus vehicles. You take a decent enough trade to force them back off. You keep your commander alive so that you can degun down if they get a little too aggressive, and then you use the resbots to pick up all of their units to use as an HP shield for your bots. I think this is wonderfully done here by Angry Strawberry. Meanwhile, a massive army up north here. You can really see in the economies right now. Well, maybe I was speaking a little too soon about that. I was going to say the economies were quite wide, but it was because of a lot of reclaim here from the blue team. Yeah, once that reclaim goes down, both of them are actually relatively stable around the same value. A couple of medium tanks slip through. Uh-oh. Are they going to get some of these? They do manage to stop that advanced solar panel, and I feel like they'll probably get a couple more. The problem with medium tanks is, although they don't do a tremendous amount of damage, they are super healthy. So they can just do damage over a decent amount of time. They're very difficult to stop here, and so that's how we managed to lose 2 of these advanced solar panels, as well as a metal extractor here for 3 of those brutes. Continued aggression down south here, and now you can see the vehicles are being sent forward. They're the HP soak, and then the resbots, which should be shortly behind here, just gonna pick up everything once more, fold it back into the army. And Neil Rowe's commander was off doing his own thing over here, but of course that commander is at a huge risk when these rocket bots start firing. Yeah, those aggravators can melt down a commander pretty quickly. I think it's about 4% per rocket from each of those rocket bots, so you have to be so careful. Now starting the March of the Thugs, and I really like that. Thugs, very, very powerful. They can outkite a commander quite easily, and so bringing them in here as sort of a commander snipe is not bad, but also they're a nice little HP soak when your opponent can no longer produce units that you can use against them. Good problems, right? You cannot resurrect your enemy's units because your enemy does not have any units. In other words, that's a W. That's a win. Neil Rowe's commander will go down. Unfortunately, the explosion does kill the resbots, but they've sort of served their purpose at this point, as Angry Strawberry's commander is still up, and so she can go eat up the rest of this reclaim with the commander. More resbots brought out to the front here, being ever so mindful about that, and even some construction turrets built on the front line. Interesting. Wonder if we're going to go for like a forward vehicle bay or something like that. Wouldn't mind to see it. Talk about pounder wars right here. We've got pounder tanks for days. Everybody and their mother is driving a pounder tank, and they are all clashing right about now. Pounder tanks engaging each other are quite funny because they just all stop. Everybody freezes. Oh, we'll talk about a freeze. The shurikens are here just in time. There is a SAM battery, so eventually those will be shut down. But man, those EMP stuns, they are quite powerful. Okay, well, lightning turret's quite powerful too. And that's a good hold. Yeah, a very solid hold here. Missile truck will eventually clean up the shuriken. All things considered, yeah, the blue player actually managed to hold on quite nicely there, using a constructor to eat up all this metal as well. It's about 1,000 metal tied up in this wreckage field, and I think that is definitely well worth getting your greedy mitts on top of as quickly as possible. At this point, the blue team with a massive lead across the entire map here. You can see them owning the controlling force in the southern side, the controlling force in the northern side. Well, that being said, that's a huge army pushing in here. A couple thousand metal of tanks, about 3,700 metal of tanks and Janices and then shell shockers and you name it, all headed directly into the back lines of the blue player here. The medium tanks are going to commit, but the rest of the auxiliary forces are going to pull back here. Nice overkill right there. Make sure there's no wreckage so that you can't get resurrection off here. Artillery piece is now slowly whittling down everything over here, but the whistlers are included to give vision. And let me switch to the blue player's vision really quickly. You can see The missile trucks providing that long-range vision so that the shell shockers have the ability to besiege any of these units much more accurately. It really turns up your shell shockers and your Wolverines. It makes them into a much better unit. It seems like a minor detail, but it really does make them quite a bit better. A lot of resbots here, and there's a lot of metal. Those go hand in hand. No, they have a more important task. They're going to be patching together an army on the southern side here. Angry Strawberry has already won her lane. She only needs to push in before capturing, I believe, a total victory here for the southern side. And once one player is eliminated, that's almost always going to be GG here. So many Pounders. Pounders are essentially designed to counter these big swarms of grunts, though. Unfortunately, they're just not hitting their shots. The connections just aren't quite ripe. And that's going to be a whole lot of these pawns sneaking on through. Yeah. Not bad. A lot of them hit landmines, and the rest of them hit static defense. So, in the end of the day, it is the end of the day. And nothing too surmountable came about from it. However, this engagement, I think, will be essentially the end of the game. Whoever, right? We're looking at a bot army with vehicle support, resurrected vehicle support here, encompassing about 6,600 metal versus an army of about 2,000 metal. So we don't usually talk about supply in this game, but we can talk about metal prices, and the metal advantage firmly and solidly sits in Angry Strawberry's hand. She need only take a decent engagement here, and with an army this size, it's not hard to get a concave big enough to start decimating these units. Resbots, of course, still included in the mixture and going to patch up everything here. Reedsweed does decide to call it GG. The backline player did go up to T2, but hasn't quite got enough to pull out those T2 units necessary to save this line. Meanwhile, Angry Strawberry has already got, or was it, Sheldon of her own, going to be tearing apart all of these bases very quickly. Thugs marching in all over the place, and this is going to be a very swift and decisive victory here for our Aquamarine blue player. Very nicely done. We do have Fiends coming out. Fiends are ideally what you want to clean up all these thugs, but there's so many of them, and they're going in so many directions, and you can only pump out so many Fiends on that early T1 economy. When you're producing T2 units with T1 economy, it's never really a good trade. A little bit of counter aggression over here. This is nice. Magic finding an opening and sneaking a couple of medium tanks through, trying to get a decent trade, but there are Fiends being pumped out of this forward T2 lab by Angry Strawberry, and she's more than happy to use those Fiends to blast down, well, fire down, flame down those vehicles coming out there. At this point, RB Squidham's base is really the only one left standing, and I don't think that will be for all too long. I guess RB Squidham's does have this sort of forward facility here. No production, but a whole lot of light laser towers, as well as a bunch of energy and energy converters. Holding on for dear life, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. The red team will decide to resign, and that is going to be the blue, snatching victory on a Sidus crack. What a lovely game. Angry Strawberry definitely showing us that she's definitely out there with some of those top-tier players. Knows how to use those resbots to her advantage, and I think that was an excellent case of exactly how you should combat vehicles as bots. It's a question I get asked a lot, so I think that's a great example. Take this one to heart, all my bot lovers out there. I'm right there with you, and I will be learning right alongside you. Hey, if you enjoyed this one, feel free to hit that like button down below. Always helps me, helps the algorithm determine that these videos are worth spreading, and of course that helps Bar grow as a game, and so I'm always super happy about that. Love to hear that there are new people always joining. I get comments like that all the time from people that say, you know, I just started playing Bar, played my first multiplayer game after watching a couple of your videos, and that just tickles my heart because that's exactly what I hope people are aiming to get into when they start playing Bar. Anyways, thanks a ton for watching. This has been The Brightworks, and I will see you in the next daily Beyond All Reason video. Whoops. Peace out, folks.